My name is Simon Sherry. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to do this talk today. I'm going to talk to you a bit about the activities from the Commission side, so Europe, what is Europe doing, but also from other major initiatives. And that will give a bit of a context about why data is increasingly important, and also what can be derived from that in terms of foresight. So why is data important? What is being done? What are the plans? What are the visions? And I will look into three different initiatives which I am very, very close to. So the structure is as follows. As I said, I will explain a bit why data is important, mainly because without data there is no AI, or at least there's limited AI. So to increase the chances of AI reaping the benefits and the opportunities that can achieve for everyone's lives, for our work, there has to be greater access to data. And this is basically the data access bottleneck. The European Commission is very up to date with that, and the data strategy they released in February this year is one of the latest in the series, trying to do something about that, to get Europe to do something about that. Then I will talk a bit about what this vision looks like, not only from the European Commission's point of view, but also from other industry and organizations in Europe. We'll also talk about from the point of view of the BDA, the BDA Association, which indeed covers a lot of industrial and research organizations. And then I will also speak, taking tracks from our involved as Fraunhofer in also the International Data Space Association and related activities, in some examples of technical solutions that are being suggested, that are emerging, for secure and trusted data sharing space. So data sharing, in short, how is it useful to enable greater access to data? What are the activities in Europe? Where are we going? What are the technical solutions? And then at the end, what are the implications on research as well? So starting with the why, right? So why is there the need for greater access to data? So in Europe, has its own advantages and disadvantages. And you can also hear me now, see me now. So how does the European point of view, right, or the position in Europe, how does it fare globally? And of course, I will say a bit what are our strengths or our weaknesses in this region, and also how this fits to the European Commission's data strategy. Next, so very short repetition of what I just said. Limited access to data means limited AI. We really need to enable greater access to data amongst multiple partners. Okay, so there's many different data providers. They are not necessarily connected. If we can connect them, there will be mutual benefit for all of them. And we also discover or have potential for new applications in different regions, across different regions, and also across different sectors. So we're not talking about silos for one sector or for one company or for a small set of companies. We can dream big, right? With this idea for generic and broad and open data sharing. Data sharing also doesn't mean for free, okay? I have to underline this. You can have different agreements. What's the benefit for sharing? Why are you sharing? But it doesn't have to be for free. It could be financial hurdles. The difficulties. So there's widespread reluctance to share data. Why? I might reveal my company's secret. I might lose track of my data. Someone else might make financial gain out of it. Lots of similar issues. But the reason, if we had to, focus it on one short sentence, would be there's a lack of a safe and trustworthy data sharing space where such data sharing for connecting multiple data can happen. The major issues to concern, and this we identified through various consultations in the activities that I mentioned, but also as Fraunhofer, they tend to be more about trust, legal compliance, data governance, or simply not having the skills in a small SME, for example. Ownership, I don't want to lose control over my data. So these concerns are actually much more difficult and much more pressing than technical issues. So, of course, technical maturity needs to be addressed. There are things such as interoperability, decentralization, scalability, secure access, provenance. We need to invest in them, but they are not the big showstopper for a data sharing space that's trusted, okay? So those are the major concerns. So the European Commission, as I said, is very aware of that. But before we go on that, so what's the strength? How do we, as a European bigger region, how do we fare in terms of global competition? So of course, in this region, we don't have maybe the biggest technological data owners. They tend to be in other continents, the US, for example. This is one thing, so that's maybe a weakness, can be seen as a weakness. And also the safeguards and restrictions. So this year, Europe in particular is very advanced here, very ethical, tries to make very safe restrictions for everyone, for the citizens at the center. This can also be thought about a weakness, but if we turn this around and we can look at weaknesses, what about strengths, right? If you look at them on another angle, you can see there's strength in diversity. So in this region, we have many more companies, many small SMEs, many small startups, rather than really large players. And if this could be connected, if there's a way how to connect them together, there's really value in this, and there's strength in this. So it's a strength in numbers, okay, and strength in diversity. So we really need to join forces. Also, regulation and compliance, they are weaknesses in a way, but once we get around, once all companies know what they're dealing with and make their data safe for sharing, then there's strength in that because you can be less reluctant to share, and you can actually share more data, having more entities share data, and thus achieving the vision. So the European Commission data strategy, and again, I borrow a lot of material here from the official communications, so I won't spend too much time here, but just in short, right, data is crucial, we all know that, and also there's a vision for a European single market for data, okay, not just for produce, but specifically for data. So that's the vision. To achieve greater access to data for AI, innovation, but also respecting European rules, values, and so on. So, yeah, there's a need to establish clear data governance, on fair access and use to data, and to open up to all these smaller players in the European region. So the goal is not only to have a European or European Union data sharing space, right? It's a European governed, European, not European Commission governed, European governed international safe space for data sharing. And the European Commission data strategy has 4 pillars. You can see them there at the bottom: enablers, competences, many different activities. But also there's this idea to roll out different data sharing spaces in crucial sectors. Okay, these have been identified by the Commission. So the idea or the wish is for them to develop in these sectors, and then slowly as we go along, the lines between these sectors start to get blurred to achieve something like really something more wider, more broader, enabling any entity with data to both put their data on the market or use data provided by others on the market. So that's a bit the vision from the European Commission side, very in line with, the European Commission is very in touch with what the industry, what research organizations, what everyone in the region is saying. I also want to say a bit about the Big Data Value Association vision, also very in line with the European Commission's ideas. So Fraunhofer is one of the founding members. I also drive this data sharing activity in the BDA. So I want to say a bit what we intend to do there to back up these plans. So in consultants with many industry and research organizations within BDA, but later on outside of BDA, try to also understand what needs to be done, okay? So how to realize the vision. So this is more about the what needs to be done. So the challenges, also I want to report here a bit more about what I should be previously. Challenges identified are not so much of a technical nature. Of course, there's technical issues that need to be addressed, but they're more about privacy protection, trust, regulatory compliance. So people are really not feeling comfortable or confident sharing their data. They could be a small company, they could be a big company, same issues arise. Ownership, okay, so these come up from time and time again. Even though the technical basis is there, people will not, they don't want to share data because they don't feel safe doing so. So that's what the BDA tries to find the actions for. And concretely, the BDA position, apart from supporting the Commission data strategy, there is an urgent need, okay, to make converge efforts by a wider of stakeholders. Trust is really key here. As I said, the main concerns are not technical. They're mostly about trust in the system. So we have concerted effort between organizations, both business and research, and also academia, but also governance and public bodies at different levels in the region. And to include opportunities for all, not only business to business, but also science to business and business to science. Same for governance, and government to business, and so vice versa, but also for citizens. We don't talk so much about that because we don't often see that as a possibility. Yeah? There's a lot of people sharing their data for free, and maybe not for free for specific services, but this could also be monetized, your own data as a private citizen. So won't go too much details here. We identify different actions categories for all these major stakeholder classifications. Private citizens is in brackets because we don't see them as an active stakeholder to realize the data sharing space, this vision. We see more the others as active stakeholders that can realize the data sharing space. And the action categories are environment enablers, infrastructure development, okay, technical innovation, safeguard provision, very important, and also workforce upskilling. So brief overlook into each. So the first action, enablers, is more targeted at the EU policymakers and also member states and also regional, national counterparts. So to set up the right policy environment, to have inclusive engagement with all stakeholders, this is already being done to an extent or another, but also to provide, for example, things like certification mechanisms, right? So you can imagine a big data sharing space which is trusted. Who is allowed to share data? Do you have the certificate to regulate that, to be an intermediary between provider and consumer and so on? Business and organizations, you see them more as developers, they actually can realize the space, okay? There's many different efforts, it's just a question of putting them together. So that's the summary there speaks for itself. You have to valorize data by providing high quality trust solutions and allowing many business and organizations to become data providers. Then we have the three other action, let's say, directions. RTO, right, very relevant here as well. So we need to raise the trust by evolving the technical solutions, even though they might be the most scared, the ones that scare potential data market players or data sharing space role players from taking part, but still technical issues still remain. Data governance, how to technically support that, sovereignty, ownership, data rights management, veracity, accuracy and quality, very important, right? So if you want to have a fair level ground for sharing data, you need to have a consistent amount of good data, and also usability. So looking into data lifecycle management strategies that natively incorporate data sharing events from the very start. So not companies or entities looking back and say, hey, what data do we have? Which of it can we share? But no, thinking ahead and say, what data will we create and how can we make it easier to share in the future if the needs arise or if we decide to do that? So that's a bit the direction there. Then there's, of course, the rule, security, quality, privacy, and ethics by design, all very important technical topics that need to be made more mature. The last two action categories, I won't go into the details, but they're again addressed more to the policymakers, member states, RTOs, external organizations, to safeguard innovation, basically to enable some things like sandboxes where people can innovate, right, and not be scared to innovate because maybe they go against GDPR or they break some other rules. So the idea to have some kind of safe spaces for experimentation. And also the workforce skills, known issue, limited skilled people in the workforce, especially SME startups, for example, which I say is a strength in Europe. We cannot all afford to have they have data scientists and so on. So there has to be a strategy for that too. So I'm going to take 30 seconds, not more, to also make you aware about the data sharing practices survey. If this is the BDA survey, it's open still for responses. So if you can tell us about previous experiences here, what you would like to see in the future, what are your thoughts about possibility in the future? This is a 10-minute or 12-minute survey which you can answer, and the link will be shared in the slides later. And then you have an opportunity to also influence our results as the BDVA data sharing group. Okay, so going into the last part is the how. And in the how, there are many ways how to achieve. There are many different suggestions, not so many maybe realizations. The many implementations tend to be proprietary, with to one company or a set of companies or a project. So what I will focus on here, I again take advantage of the fact that we are, as Fraunhofer, one of the main drivers of international data spaces. The project, the original national project, before it became an international association and international effort. Now it's also, the IDSA is also one of the key partners in Gaia X, okay, same kind of topic there. And also this IDSA reference model is also very important there. So why did I pick this one? I picked this one because the reference architecture model by the IDSA is very open, and it's, in my opinion, it takes care of the most crucial issues in terms of sovereignty, ownership, safety, security, minimizing risks. Okay, so maybe on the weaker side, okay, you don't come across reference implementations that are widely used or widely owned yet based on IDSA, but it is very inspirational, it's very influential. So eventually we will see this happen. So talking about European projects again, a lot of the newly funded ICT 13A projects will refer to IDSA as one of their models. So going to this, and how does it fit? So the concerns I was talking about, I classify them personally as macro versus micro. Macro is things which influence or are actually issues affecting the entire ecosystem. So you have the network of participating nodes as data providers or data consumers or intermediaries. So how do you create this safe, trusted space? Okay, these are the macro concerns. So there's sovereignty concerns. How can you regulate transferable ownership? If you're selling data, right? You're selling the data. It can be copy pasted and you lose control of it. The main concern. So how can you technically support that? Trust, interoperability, okay, same thing. These are all macro concerns. How you connect the data together, how you to make the entities trust each other. Then there are micro concerns. So quality and veracity, secure access, legal concerns. I consider these as micro because I think these need to be mostly dealt with within each node. So if you think of as a data sharing space as a network of entities sharing data, I think these micro concerns need to be addressed within each node, whereas the macro concerns need to be provided by the system. Okay, we don't know what the system is, but it's this vision of a data sharing space. So the IDSA reference architecture addresses, in my opinion, very well the macro concerns, specifically sovereignty, interoperability, ownership, trustworthiness. These are really the core principles of this IDS vision for a network of trusted data. So I won't go so much in the details, just the main message again is IDS, the reference model, supports all these main issues, which we have noted are the main concerns of people, the macro concerns. And it's really trying to balance, right? Find a nice balance between sharing as much as possible your data, but at the same time minimizing risks and also minimizing things like competition. Okay, you don't want to give your secrets away. Maximizing value and also minimizing risks and maximizing your own rights on the data. So sovereignty is a really important point because you need to stay in control, okay, and self-determine your own data value and the use of data assets. You cannot lose control. Otherwise, this trusted space cannot be realized. So from an more architecture point of view, the IDS ecosystem, okay, the basis of it includes a connector, which can be thought of each of these nodes in a network needs to have a connector that is aligned, that is IDS compliant, but also producer and consumer. So you can be an IDS node in the network as a producer or consumer, or both. Okay, then you have intermediary roles as well, like a broker, for example. So the broker can connect producers to consumers, or it can simply, in its simplest form, be a registry of data sets made available by producers for consumers to discover. And then you have apps, okay? Apps can be, at the simplest level, can be thought about ways how to extract the right data once contracts are in place, very important. Ideally from the source. So you don't send your own data to the consumer. No, you have an app which is approved, maybe by a certification mechanism, maybe by an intermediary which checks the consistency and actually that the set does what it does. The app is shipped to the producer, and it only sends back the relevant data to the consumer, so that the consumer doesn't have access to the whole data of the producer. So this is the main idea of the IDS, right? And this is why I'm saying it's very generic, but also in a way it's very good because it covers the main macro concerns. So the reference model is available for those who want to see. The third version was released last year. Entities can become IDS ready, right? And as I said, it's one of the core concepts, this model behind the new growing Gaia X initiatives. Cloud, data sharing in the cloud, right? How to rival other continents or other regions. And we don't have our own cloud, we don't have bigger organizations. And again, they identified that the key is to connect all this diversity, strengthen diversity. Okay, so want to conclude right now by told you a bit about the what, the how, and the why, and I want to say what is the impact. So what can be the research focus, right? Taking in this issues, sorry, the concerns and divisions. So talking about foresight, to help set up a functional data sharing space. What are the technical issues? What are the most pressing technical issues? And what are the research questions? So technical issues, once again, remain interoperability, okay? To connect diverse, especially they really need to communicate, the data has to be ready. Cannot expect everyone to transform their data. There has to be ways how to semi-automate or automate this completely. Maybe not so much possible. I know because I'm also technical myself. But we have to go different level of automation, closer to automation. Quality, veracity, provenance, you need to guarantee high quality data. Without high quality data, there is no reason the data sharing system. Privacy preservation, as I said, GDPR in Europe, it's actually setting standards across the globe, right? So this happens because companies outside of Europe have data belonging to European citizens and they survive. So this privacy preservation is also needs to support that. We have to be very careful with that through anonymity and so on. These are all very hot topics. Data rights management, as I said, ownership, data ownership legally is impossible to define or control. There's no such thing, I'm told by legal experts. So we have to see what data rights management can be. You know, in the contracts, you can transfer data rights management to your data within certain conditions, and they cannot transfer it to other parties, and they are liable if that happens, and so on. And also, I think one of the biggest topics here is decentralized data processing architectures. Because if we go, for example, to an IDS-inspired model, where you keep the data at source, right? You have multiple entities in a node, they're all sharing data, but they keep the data, they don't need to port the data. They don't need to maybe transform the data either. We're talking basically about a semantic data lake, okay? So decentralized data, relating the data at source. You can only centralize data mappings, maybe looking back at the IDS level as at the broker level. You have a model of the data that you want to provide as a producer, but not the data. So we're talking about virtual semantic data. So a virtual semantic data lake, where you provide on-demand query translation, because I said no transformation will always be possible. Sorry, transformation will not always be possible. So this becomes difficult, and scalability is a key issue here. So include some pictures here. So from some previous research that I'm very close to and aware of, realizing this data, semantic data lakes, and how to operate in them, federated querying. These are, in my opinion, one of the hottest topics, because the bigger data sharing space will become, the more flexible they become, allowing real-time data, batch data, mix of, the more flexible they have to become. So that's my, let's say, message here. If we're talking about foresight coming from the big initiatives in the European region, I think how to effectively operate and manage data, semantic data lake, query data in semantic data lake, and process and analyze over that is really the biggest topic in terms of scalability. If I have to go down to one keyword. So thank you very much. I will take questions. I think it was mostly intended for later, so I would give it back the floor to Valentina. You can contact me. As I said, I'm from Hofer IIS here in Bonn, Germany, but I'm also involved in BDA, and we also have a very active role in the IDSA. So any questions related to anything I presented, very happy to answer. Thank you.